Hello, my name is Abel, and I'm here with my group mates Alan, Jessica, and Nikki. And today we're going to be talking about the book This Changes Everything: Climate versus Capitalism. So, when people think of problems in this world, whether it's in the war of Afghanistan, or extinctions of pandas, or especially in this case, global warming, we tend to act like we give a damn about what's happening for a little while until the trend is over. The book This Changes Everything: Capitalism versus Climate, written by author Canadian author Naomi Klein does a fantastic job tackling the correlation between capitalism and climate. Naomi Klein also does a good job portraying herself, being a left wing on the political spectrum whilst also providing us with information on what the views of the the right wing side thinks about climate change and capitalism. The fact of the matter is that most of the right wing party doesn't even think that climate change exists. The book also talks about various subjects of how humans are so greedy and that they're really being ignorant towards global warming in general. To us, that's the main idea that Klein was trying to get at. Since America and other capitalist countries are using factories and other carbon emissions such as fossil fuels, it will continue to be like this for the coming years. The fact that these big companies do see the adverse effects of what they are choosing and then choose to look the other way conveys where their priorities are. These CEOs would rather stack money on their own net worth than contribute the well-being to the well-being of this earth by conserving the use of fossil fuels. This is a problem with capitalism. And over the course of the presentation, my group and I will be talking about how 1. Capitalism affects climate in our world, 2. How this will affect our future, and 3. Ways to improve ways to help improve the reduction for the amount of climate change in the society. It's up to us to stop the cycle of greed and selfishness. But in order to do so, we first need to know how climate change is affecting us as of right now.
Climate change is impacting the way we live. It's always being seen as a political issue when it's scientifically studied and has research to back it up. Yet people always seem to make it about money, being liberals, or whatever else they can use as an excuse to not acknowledge it. Because of climate change, there are now more storms, droughts, heat waves, rising sea levels, melting glaciers, and warming oceans. And it's not only impacting us, but it's causing harm to animals, destroying the places they live, and also destroying the places and communities we have. Naomi writes, it would be incredibly difficult to persuade governments in almost every country in the world to implement the kinds of redistributive climate mechanisms. But we should be clear about the nature of the challenge. It is not we are broke or that we lack options. It is that our political class is utterly unwilling to go where the money is, and the corporate class is dead set against paying its fair share. Nobody is willing to make the change because of the money and they make from their factories. But what these people don't understand is that they won't have a world to actually make their money on because we're killing it. All the polluting factories, littering, just not giving a damn about what we do here and to those who live on it, it's killing us. It's bringing the planet to a point of no return, and then once we truly realize what's happening, it'll be too late. And we tell ourselves all kinds of similarly implausible, no consequences stories all the times about how we can ravage the world and suffer no adverse effects. Indeed, we are always surprised when it works out otherwise.
How does capitalism affect climate, and how does climate affect capitalism? The effects of climate change and capitalism is one big cycle that just keeps getting worse and worse. An example of this from the book is a scenario where an airplane is stuck in melted pavement due to the extreme heat from the climate change, and the solution is to spend more money on a tow truck with a more powerful engine, producing greenhouse gases along the way. This shows us that the consequence of climate change creates more problems for us, and we solve it by contributing to the very problem that is causing it all to happen, trapping us in a cycle. Another extreme example of this would be Hurricane Sandy, where not only did climate change bring upon a natural disaster, but also brought upon an economic disaster. The cost of Superstorm Sandy is estimated at $65 billion. And globally, 2011 holds the title as the cost of this year for disasters, with total damages reaching at least $380 billion. As seen here, where the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami costed up to $220 billion in Japan alone. These rising emergency expenditures are being offset with cuts to everyday public spending, which will make societies even more vulnerable during the next disaster, a classic vicious cycle. This is showing us again that we must spend an unnecessary amount to rescue, recover, and rebuild, which in turn produces more greenhouse gases and contributes to the ever-growing climate crisis. Consumerist lifestyle is a big part of what drives the climate change capitalism cycle. Many of us have an overwhelming amount of desires. Corporations respond to these desires by providing a supply for that demand. These overwhelming amounts of supplies are then produced in overwhelming amounts of factories, leading to overwhelming amounts of fuel being burnt, in turn damaging the environment overwhelmingly. Unfortunately, it doesn't end there. With this in mind, corporations begin to develop a sort of ideal where it is okay for them to profit, even at the expense of the climate. Even to the point where trade negotiators are willing to completely block out climate change policies to ensure that trade will continue without interruption. In other words, while trade has been repeatedly allowed to trump climate, under no circumstances would climate be permitted to trump trade. It just goes to show how far people would put capitalism over climate.
We cannot allow ourselves to only be spectators to the damage being imparted on our planet. We must take action. You may be thinking, well, I have helped do my part by recycling, composting, reducing water usage, etc., and my impact seems to be little to none. Well, you would be correct. All this time, the average consumer has been doing their part to reduce their footprint, but large companies have done the extreme opposite. Instead of reducing their footprint, they have enlarged it and made it almost a permanent imprint. According to Klein, it is not about changing light bulbs anymore or taking shorter showers. Although everyone should continue to do their part, it is about changing capitalism and altering our economic system that has proven time and again that it fails our planet, but continues to allow the multi-billionaire and millionaire companies to prosper. It is about replacing fossil fuels in such a way that already exists and has been shown to flourish in multiple ways. Lastly, transforming our failing economic system to better the condition of our planet takes breaking every rule in the free market, including reducing corporate power and restructuring local economies. Taking power away from big companies helps rein in how much damage they can do to our planet and how much they can get away with. Right now, big companies get away with a lot more than they should, and that needs to change. In doing this, not only do we help our planet, but we help to reduce the inequality gaps that are created by the free market and capitalism as well. Those who are deniers of climate change need to wake up and realize we cannot leave this crisis in the hands of the free market as they have been doing for years now. That has and will continue to make things worse via unleashing more extreme and damaging fuel extraction methods and increasing disaster capitalism. They need to stop promoting failing mainstream green initiatives and stop encouraging the delusions of possible geoengineers. Being in denial does not make climate change magically disappear, but only prolongs the damage being done and brings us closer to impending doom. It is time to take action and make the change necessary to live sustainably and help our planet.